of the Education, Commissioning and Quality Committee. Alex Howells, our Chief Exec, will be joining us shortly for this morning's meeting, and she will be presenting one of the items on the agenda this morning. In terms of apologies for absence, I've had apologies from John Gammon, Tom Lawson and Nick Sheen. And I've also been advised that Kirsty Moons will be in attendance just for the dental agenda item due to a diary clash this morning. I can confirm we are correct. For that. Can I ask if there are any declarations of interest for items this morning on this agenda?
None received, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so if we can then move on to the draft minutes from the 7th of December, and if we can go for accuracy first. Page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And there's accuracy. Thank you. And then if we can move on to the action log, same meeting. I can see that all the items have been completed or are on the board work.
That's correct, Chair.
Much. So if we can just go back to the minutes then, and if there are any matters arising. So again, page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Everybody seems to have any matters arising on that. Okay, then we'll sign those off as an accurate record. Thank you. So we then can move into the first part of the main part 2, the education performance quality assurance updates. And if we start with 2.1.1, that's the update from medicine. Bush, are you leading that one?
To Anton, if that's okay. He's prepared most of the reports, so it's right.
So I'll make a general comment. Everybody has obviously had the papers, so we'll have an opportunity to review those. So if we can draw out the main points you want, and then we can see out questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. You have all received the report, and I'm very happy to take questions on the report. I think we've prepared this report to show both achievements and challenges within postgraduate medical education since the last ECQC. You will know that we write this report looking through the lens of a quality management system. So it's written to reflect quality planning, followed by quality management, assurance and improvement, and all of those mapped to the duty of quality. I am not going to read the report. I have a little bit of the press information. Under the first item, we talked about foundation recruitment. I can and we describe the challenges around foundation recruitment, and we also know that the board has supported an increase in foundation posts to 485 to mitigate against that risk. Allocation was indeed done last Tuesday, and we have received in Wales preliminary data that we have filled to 485 posts. There will inevitably be some withdrawals because things change throughout the year, but there is also a little bit of a change in the allocations because of the new system that's been implemented. As you know, there's been a preference ranking and their allocation by an algorithm, not a situational judgment test. So nobody had to sit the SJT this year. 75% of applicants got their first choice, and I think that's quite good. And I think the proportion of international medical graduates as a whole has reduced for us in Wales. So I think that the allocation algorithm has maybe moved, I'm not sure, but it seems that it's distributed across 4 nations of the UK. So that is some good news. And we will feed back on that, and there is an action for us to report at the end of the year on foundation recruitment. The rest of the report really speaks for itself. We've done a lot of activity in performing annual reviews of competency progression between 2,000 and 3,000 this year, from which we've had a small number of appeals, which have been managed accurately or appropriately, and we assured externality and fairness in that process. As far as our learning environments go, we have a good system in place for support for trainees. We have an adequate number of trainers in both primary and secondary care. We are actively working with our LEP partners around those areas which are in enhanced monitoring and those which have got high risk concerns in the quality management process. And we're very pleased to note that one area has come out of enhanced monitoring. Just want to say that the goal isn't really to have nobody in enhanced monitoring. The goal is for us to do what needs to be done to support our training environments to be excellent. But we're very pleased that working with partners, we've been able to influence change and work towards improvement. We've done a lot of work around speaking up safely and a lot of processes, as you can see from the report, into the medical deanery work. And we have a system for noting, addressing, acting, and on concerns. And we have a reporting structure, and we've got a system for coordinating, following up, addressing, and closing those concerns that come into the medical deanery. We know that the business as usual work in the deanery is increasing, and I've made some references to work that increases, but despite that, we know when we look at the assurance of the work that we do, that we can be assured that our processes around, for example, revalidation and Push's role as RO works well. We've been visited by a delegation on behalf of the Chief Medical Officer to look at our trainee revalidation process, and they were assured that we are doing what we need to do, and we've had good feedback from the regulator who can withdraw training practices about our self-assessment for quality assurance, which we have to pull in throughout the year. We've now received some feedback on that. I think I will pause there. I will be very happy. I think the report speaks for itself, and I'm very happy to take any questions on this one.
There's one thing is the number of, in the past, we've had really high numbers of placing in enhanced monitoring. Peak was 7. Now, I think it shows good cooperation between our medical deanery and the local education providers to work together to resolve some of those issues. It's not easy to come out of enhanced monitoring method, and any improvements have to be sustained. So we're quite pleased that we're at the level that we are, although vigilance is still high across several areas. There are some areas which are at high risk who could slip into enhanced monitoring in the future, but we're constantly looking.
Thank you. Thank you for that update, Anton. I'll open it out to questions. Jill, this evening.
Thank you, John. Thanks, Anton. That's great news, hot off the press. It's really good news, isn't it? That we've seem to have told the latest. Excellent. And I was heartened to hear you state that whilst it would be lovely to have no queue and enhanced monitoring, you would expect there to be something at some point. So I'm heartened to hear that as well, because aiming both and then always makes me nervous. So I just have 2 very quick questions, and they're very minor. I think the report does stand for itself. The faculty leads in secondary care, we only recruited 2. Is there any particular reason why, because of the delay clearly in getting the other 2 in place?
Okay, sorry, I might not have made that as clear as I can. So all our faculty leads, sorry, just for those who may not know, our faculty leads are very important to us as our heads of schools, TPDs and educational supervisors are. So our faculty leads is a group, it's not 90, sometimes they're 20. It's a group of folks who are employed by us based in the LEBs and help us to manage trainee, trainer and quality issues on site. They're really important to us, and my colleagues who do the quality management really depend on them for information and working on the site. So those posts are really important to us. The two vacancies that so all the vacancies are currently filled. Sorry, there's some things that moved on a little bit. And recruitment has taken, I think all the vacancies are currently filled or in process of being filled. There has been delay in appointing to one or two of the previous faculty leaders. And this, I think, is related to the pressures within working environments, the additional responsibility that folks would have to take up. I don't know if there's any evidence of the risk of burnout, but a lot of educational posts, in my opinion, is becoming slightly less attractive to people because of the intense pressure in the clinical environment. So I think that is a reflection, and that is some of the general feeling of from survey or in-depth interviews. We do exit interviews for faculty leads that leave post, and have had really good feedback from those exit interviews. That's been done by the Associate Dean for Postgraduate Education.
And the only other one was a very small one, I don't know why I'm asking this, in terms of the complaints, and one that was on NWSSP. Was that about single lead employer?
Yes.
And I guess maybe for either now or at some point an update on, are we now happy that that's improving?
We have a joint working group with our partners at the single lead employer. These are issues related to usually to employment contracts, and sometimes there are issues around reasonable adjustments, etc. And we have to work with them to address this. There's some more work to do.
So on single employer, we brought a paper to execs recently to follow the February onboarding. And I think overall, the number of issues being reported both last August and in February have decreased, but the actual issues are the same. It's less in number. We've agreed for our internal audit and their internal audit to look at the processes on both sides this year, with a view to finding feedback on how we could improve that. So I think that's going to be a very positive outcome and give us hopefully the right information.
Chair, perhaps we could note to make sure that the audit committee pick that one up.
Yeah, thanks, Jill. We should note that. That's a very sensible suggestion. Yeah, I've just got one small question, if I could, and it was under the section on page 4 about the high risk concerns we had, and obviously noting that 2 visits had to be deferred due to the industrial action in January, which obviously is understandable, but I just wanted to understand whether those have been rescheduled.
They have been rescheduled. I can't tell you whether they've been completed or not, but they have been rescheduled, and there's plans in place for those to get them completed as soon as possible.
Okay.
Could I just comment on the industrial action? We think that the impact of junior doctors going on strike hasn't had a huge impact on the way we operate. The concerns we're going to have are for all the activities that the consultants do, because the consultants are the ones who do a lot of the ARCPs and do a lot of the assessments.
Yeah.
And if they're stepping down to cover while the juniors are off, then that's an additional pressure on our trainers, especially as they've now planned strike action for SAS doctors and consultants. So we think that there may be a cumulative effect on the way we train as time goes on because there's two groups.
And
So we'll
presumably
keep
push that, something that you'll be reporting on or advising us.
We'll be keeping very close on.
If there are no further questions, then we're asked to note the paper providing an overview of current risks and exceptions in relation to postgraduate medical training and the actions taken, and note the positive exceptions and progress. Do that? Hey, I'm sure a minute ago I saw Kirsty on the screen. Are you there, Kirsty? Possibly not.
Fiona, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. I've got one person attending, but I can't see who that is. Kirsty, if you're there, can you just check your microphone for me?
It looks like we might have lost Kirsty.
Yeah, we can't see Kirsty here. Can you see it, Fiona?
No, I can see Craig and I can see Angie, so it doesn't look like she's here.
Well, can I suggest we perhaps move on and do the pharmacy update first, and hopefully we can reconnect with Kirsty a little later. So we move on to item 2.13, pharmacy update. Margaret, do you want to carry on?
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to highlight a couple of points in our pre-registration pharmacy technician programme. We don't have any major concerns. Our vacancy to recruitment rate looks somewhat low. That's due to the numbers that we had in our ETP plan, but we have revised that number now for going forward to a more realistic number, which is 80 in any 1 year, and we feel confident then our vacancy to recruitment rate will be more aligned to a higher percentage. However, the positive news is that our retention rate, both within the programme and then beyond into Wales, as in employment within Wales, is high, and we have minimal trainees concerns around any trainees or training sites. So pre-registration pharmacy technician is looking positive. We've just completed our first cohort of our new level 4 programme. And when we come to the next committee, I'll report further on the feedback from the completion of that level 4 programme, because it only completed in February. So we're still sort of analysing that data. But anecdotally, the feedback is very positive, both from students and from employers, that students that are exiting are actually of a different calibre, and they can actually do more for patients at the point of registration. So, but we'll come back formally with that evaluation at the next meeting. For our trainee pharmacist foundation programme, again, we do get a high fill rate. Our retention rate doesn't look very positive. It was 54%. We are doing some significant work on that to try and increase that. There's a number of factors in there that are influencing that retention rate. Some of it is the way we recruit through having a process that covers both England and Wales. And when you think England have maybe 3,500, 4,000 places and we have 100, and we're not very visible. So, but that wasn't something we could change quickly, but we are looking at that, as well as having intense engagement with our students now in learning in MPharm in Wales, so that we can encourage as many people coming through our Wales MPharms into that foundation year, and hopefully then increase our retention rate. So it's
definitely on our radar, and we are keeping our eye on that and monitoring it with a view to wanting to increase that. So we don't have any major concerns with our students in learning at the moment. They're all being managed through our concern process, where there are people who are perhaps not progressing as we would hope, but there's nothing of major concern, and they are being managed in year. At this moment in time, we're not expecting people not to complete, but that may change. We will see in the next coming months. I think really what I really wanted to highlight from this report is, which I mentioned last time, that we are now going through a significant change for the quality management of our foundation trainee programme. We have just submitted to our regulator GPHC our significant accreditation documentation, which was 150 odd pages and 38 appendices. And we are expecting a pre-meeting in April and then our formal panel meeting in May. So that is critical to us now. It's a step 3 accreditation. We need to get over that line to be able to be accredited to for our 25-26 new programme with IP. So we are working on going through that process. If we are expecting we may get signed off at step 3, the next one, quite often you'll have some recommendations you have to come back to. So we will wait and see. It's a new process for all the statutory education bodies, so it's a bit of a not quite sure. But we feel we are really well prepared for it and in a good position. But you know, it is a big piece of work and a big change for us and a big change for our stakeholders, because we will be far more aligned to our medical model. And we do need to consider internally then how we manage that going forward, how that looks internally, how we can sort of look at efficiencies or resource need through the medical directorate or learning. So and I think let's see how we get through the accreditation, and then we'll have to sort of reflect and consider how we will be able to manage all of those additional processes that we will have to align to. I think that was all I really wanted to say on these questions.
But can I open it out to questions? Jill?
This just me.
Yeah.
I'll continue to keep going with the questions. Yeah, thanks, Barbara. It's really helpful, actually, the paper. I find myself, every time I read it, always wanting a roadmap of where everything's going and aligning, because there's so many different dates, so many changes. It's quite hard to keep up. I guess one of the things that hit me in terms of the retention or the job rate was, have we got enough training places and jobs in Wales for the number of pharmacists that we actually need?
I was saying, sorry, just clarify the question. So I was saying, are we training enough people for the vacancies we've got to provide with us? So
Have we got enough vacancies for?
yes, we've got a lot of vacancies. So there are a lot. We probably, what we get challenged with is we think we should be training more in the foundation year. I think it's the other way round at the moment, but I think some of our constraints on capacity to train, which we talked about a little bit earlier, but also we do need that robust data to really justify what they're saying they need and what we actually are. So at the moment we're collecting the data because the data is somewhat more fragmented in pharmacy because, you know, they're not a lot of them are NHS employees.
Yeah.
So, but we are on that journey to be able to have robust data to back up actually how train.
Should I add a couple of things? Is the Swansea graduates are going to come online fairly soon, and we think that will help with retention in Wales because further up in Wales geographically, and I think that they are likely to recruit more from there. And we are, from the quality perspective, the aim is to have the same quality unit that functions within medicine, covering the other areas within the medical directorate, dental and pharmacy, and having all the systems aligned so that we can do that for all the professional areas, which I think will be good progress. But just wanted to have two additional points.
Thank you. You picked up the point in the paper that I had, Margaret, which was around what looked like a relatively low retention rate of only 54%. But you've covered up, the reasons, which is what I wanted to understand. I suppose just given sometimes what happens with that big piece of work that's ongoing, and I should imagine the teams have had to spend a lot of time pulling all that together to produce the information for assurance, etc. Are we confident that? Do we know the timeline that it's going to be all signed off and right for when we need it to be, given that it's a new process? Are there any potential risks that we could find ourselves in a difficult position should that not happen?
I think what we need to do some more detailed work around is the resource to be able to support the management of all of those processes, which is quite different to what we've done before. The expectation is much greater. I think, to be really honest, I think we are in a really good place because we've been on this journey. We have been increasing our quality management framework anyhow, so it isn't completely starting at ground zero, but it is quite a big step from where we are. We believe we're going to need additional resource to support it, but we do need to get through to see if GPHC are happy with what we've approved. Then we need to do an analysis of what does that mean for us and our workforce. This is for 25-26, so we will have 12 months to make sure that we've got everything in place to be able to support those processes.
And you're confident that's sufficient time? It's just that 25 creeps up very quick after 24, but yeah. Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. So we're just asked to note the report for information assurance. Kirsty, welcome back. Apologies, we lost you for a moment or two, and we moved on. So I'm conscious that you have another commitment. So if you would like to present your report, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm not with you in person today, but as you say, I'm online with another meeting all day, and my laptop decided to crash at the exact moment I joined you, so apologies. Take the report as read. It provides a relatively positive overview of our position in dental. Some updates. Dental foundation training. We're currently recruiting for our educational supervisors for dental foundation training. And we have just the number we need. So that is an ongoing risk, and it's related to where dentistry is generally, I would say, in terms of the desire to get involved in NHS in any way, shape or form, including in training. So we have enough, but we don't have more than we'd like there. So that restricts our capacity to recruit more trainees effectively. Dental core training, as is, that we've had a couple of we've had 2 resignations in Cardiff, particularly, both unrelated, both for different reasons, and they've gone into private sector employment. But that's something we're starting to see a little more in early years trainees because they have the choice of doing so. Dental specialty training, we've had 1 specialty trainee resign in the last quarter, but again for personal reasons, not related to the quality of training, and we've managed that as well, and we will continue to recruit to that post. I think of note is the post that we've established in North Wales for a temporary registrant, and I just want to make the committee aware that has taken in excess of 6 months of negotiations with the GDC regarding their temporary registration rules, and it's the first time we've managed to get a post like this established and within those rules. But it's great. We've recruited a candidate from overseas who was the best candidate, and we're now able to facilitate them into that post. So it's a really positive news story. dental therapy foundation training and dental hygiene and therapy undergraduate commissioning, as is in the paper, but we are doing some early analysis of the transition and the destinations of the hygiene and therapy graduates and where they go. And our early data informs us that the hygienists tend to go into the private sector, aesthetics, cosmetics, and the therapists tend to come into their foundation training program and into the NHS. So that's the focus for our sort of increase in that workforce, and why we are looking to substantially increase the workforce, starting to build the evidence base around that. The Train Work Live campaign, we've just recorded the second video for the second phase of that. That's been relatively successful. And is a great advertisement for bringing candidates to Wales. I think probably making the committee aware of salary differentials, significant salary differentials for dental trainees between the nations, and we have lost trainees because of the salary differentials. That does impact, but we are still managing to recruit into Wales despite that. So I think it's positive. And then the remaining around the dental training forum, dental trainee survey, we've got a lot of work going on in terms of our quality systems and processes that are helping us to pick up where there are issues and concerns, and action plans have been put in place with local units to manage those. So I think that's a fairly quick canter through. Happy to take any questions. There's lots bubbling away in dentistry, and I'm sure there probably will be questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsty, for that and for the comprehensive report we've received. Opening it up to questions. It's like we're a double act this morning, isn't it?
Sorry about this, guys. Yeah. I was waiting to see how many of you replied to that. Okay, Kirsty, I'm sorry, I've got 4 questions. So if I just give you the questions quickly. Thank you for the paper, by the way. It's really well set out and very clear. Disappointing that we only got 16 out of 20 posts in terms of dental therapy. And I just wondered whether there was anything that we needed to do in terms of, making that role a bit more visible, as the first question. Dental nurses, there were none in AB and BC, which surprised me. The third question is the dental hospital. Does that come under the visit regime that we've got in terms of monitoring? And I just wondered whether when a visit to the dental hospital might be programmed. And the last one, I think, applies to all the papers, I guess. It says there are no financial implications in all the papers, and there clearly will be financial implications from not recruiting and all sorts of other issues. And I just wondered whether we ought to be a little bit more clear about that, because when we do come to hand money back or vice versa, then we need to be clear about the financial implications of some of these issues in the papers. So it was a general comment. So sorry, Kirsty, you've got the last one that applies to all.
That's fine. Thank you,
You'd be
Jill.
glad to know, Kirsty, that the questions that I were going to go to ask, 2 of them Jill has already asked, so that's fine.
Thank you. Okay, I'll take them in order. So our Dental Therapy Foundation programme, we increased the numbers from 10 to 20 and we recruited 16. That's still a really, really positive position for Wales, because England are trying really hard to chase this workforce and have put a scheme in place, and many of them did not run because they did not recruit. So I think from a Wales perspective, it's a really, really positive position. And it ties a little bit, Jill, to your question about the financial implications, because I've had a conversation with finance colleagues this week about potentially over-recruiting places to make sure that we capitalise on potential underspend. So I think we will, our ambition is to do that, because I think we want to maximise what we're putting into the workforce. It's constrained a little bit about how many practices want to train, and we're just in the middle of that process now. But we've had a healthy number of applications in from interested therapists this year that suggest that we could expand the offer. So I think that's probably where we will go to try and again bring more in, because the scheme we offer in Wales is more attractive than it is in England. So to the therapists, I would say. So that's the therapy question. The dental nursing question. Dental nursing training is very complex. There are a number of routes to registration. The course we offer is one of the routes. Betsy Cadwallader has 3 programs running already, so there is a supply already in Betsy Cadwallader of dental nurse training programs. And Iron Bevan, we've got conversations set up with colleague Gwent to try and support them in developing a program. So we've got conversations taking place. I mean, because the only funded route for dental nurse training is via the Welsh Government apprenticeship, which is in Welsh Government and education, not in health. There's some nuances and challenges in there, but we're working with our apprenticeship colleagues in HEIW and then wider to try and improve that offer and get a better sustainable supply through. And that's one of the actions in our workforce plan, to scope that provision of dental nurse training and make recommendations in that respect. The third question you made, you asked about the enhanced monitoring of visits to the dental hospital. Yes, absolutely. That's part of our journey into the better quality processes. So we've looked at the evidence. We've had an initial meeting with them. There is an action plan in place with timelines and clear outcomes. If the action plan isn't met, then we will have a targeted visit. So yes is the answer to your question there. And then the financial implications, absolutely. I take your point, and I think it's a very live conversation we're having with our finance colleagues around that position. And I think it's probably, as you say, it applies to all of us. So it's probably something we need to take away and talk about it more in greater length.
As I say, we hadn't planned it, but Jill did ask the 2 questions I had as well. I just want to say well done on perseverance with getting that the GDC to agree that. Hopefully, should we be, and that they stuck with us at that time as well and wanted to continue to come. So thank you. I can see Bush has got his hand up. So
just wanted to say with the dental school, what we did, we got together other colleagues from the medical deanery where we're doing this all the time to advise and make a plan on how we're going to do that with dental as well, which is the initial part of bringing the quality processes across all the deaneries. So we've already started doing that, and that's how we approach this, isn't it, Kirsty?
Yeah, absolutely. Can I just come back in there, if I may, Chair? Just 2 additional points. One is the dental school. So we work closely with the dental school, Cardiff University, and the dental hospital via some of our trainee placements, and that's kind of a symbiotic relationship. However, we're trying to encourage them to work a little bit more closely together, because we have trainees across all of those, the school and the hospital. So I think that's one of the challenges we're just trying to manage at the moment. The temporary registration issue with the specialty trainee. Thank you for recognising that. That was I was on GDC Council for a number of years, so I was able to challenge them on their guidance. Whereas the initial response we had to our request for this position was no, and I just kept persisting, as you say. So we just should recognise that.
Thank you. So as part of the report, we're asked to note the paper providing an overview of current risks and exceptions in relation to dental training, and note the positive exceptions. And thank you, Kirsty, for joining us this morning. I'll let you go on to your other commitment.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good to see you all.
Right, so we can then return to the agenda. We've got 2.14, the optometry report, and I think, Push, you're going to give that this morning.
Yeah, there's very little to say that's new in this. The previous report highlighted an increase of 30% commissioning for postgrad qualifications. The only thing that's happened since then is that we recruited to the highest medical retina. So that's the only activity that's actually happened since the last ECQC.
Okay. Are there any questions? Have any specific questions either on this report? So We'll take that. We're asked to accept the report as assurance of quality processes in the role of commissioning in optometry. So thank you for that. 2.1.5, nursing and health professional education. Lisa.
Thank you, Chair, and Board of Pal. So it's actually really actually sort of bringing to your attention the actually interventions that we actually put in place in order to develop the quality improvements actually in our education programs actually for nurse and health professional education. Just wanted to draw your attention really actually to key elements actually within the report. As you can see, actually what we've done actually extensively is actually improved our data reporting and capture of actually what is actually going on a much more regular basis. So in terms of increasing applications, you can see actually the interventions that we've undertaken. We all know the fill rate actually were last September where they were, but that's never to say actually we need to carry on undertaking a lot of intervention. And what I would say is that the interventions that HIW itself has actually undertaken to enhance actually the fill rate, actually above actually what the Education Commissions are, is not to be a sort of, you know, it is quite extensive. So that's been quite successful. And actually obviously in terms of increasing applications, it's an ongoing issue, like we've heard from other colleagues really, in terms of how do we market and actually raise the profile of actually these professions actually as good to come into actually and train. So of note actually in terms of actually recruitment, you will see actually the spring mental health nursing actually is a challenge. And we've described in there the mitigations that we've put in place. That's something that needs to be ongoing. It is an area of concern, and we're working with the universities to enhance that. But nevertheless, actually, we've actually explored opportunities with other universities to actually enhance that number. So it is a specific area that we're actually looking at there. You'll see the dashboard that we've actually sort of given you an example of there. And that's where you can see actually where we can keep a much more sort of focused eye actually on what's happening. We're taking a much more active involvement in knowing what applications there are, but also what the fill rates are. That's the more important aspect. And of course, we are now looking at obviously to September as well. We think actually the increase in the bursary loan is likely actually to improve the number of applicants, because that is actually much more favourable to our students going forward. But we won't know that for some time because that comes in September this year. And actually then actually focuses, so that's the fill rate of the applications. But of course, actually the fill rate is only as good as how many people actually come and graduate at the end. So then you actually lead into the attrition rates that we're looking at. And we're pleased to say that we've really actually worked on what does attrition really mean, because it can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. So within HIW, we've actually honed in on what our definition is, because you can have attrition because people leave the programme, but also actually because they have an interruption of studies where they may rejoin the programme further on as well. So it's really trying to tease those aspects apart. And obviously, as you then undertaking a focus review with all of our sort of universities to understand what the rationale for attrition is, why actually there are attrition rates, and what improvements they're putting in place in order to enhance that as well. We've described actually in the paper the key areas of concern that we have actually with some of the universities and the work that's even got ongoing through that contract performance actually framework, in order to focus in on that and actually sort of have that conversation with them. There are quality improvement plans in place with our universities to address that, which is actually very specific, as well as that contract performance of the arena as well. Touched on actually some of the other papers about placements, and you'll see in this paper the direction of travel that we've got in terms of moving towards actually that multi-professional placement arena. So although we are looking and actually sort of looking at actually specific recruitment of placement opportunities as we speak in primary care, health professionals, mental health, there is a view then as to how we can learn actually from that and actually move to a much more multi-professional arena. And I'm pleased to say that we've actually created this dashboard which actually looks at where all our placements are. So we've been quite successful in mapping currently all our nurse placements, but actually so obviously actually had a programme actually approached the other day, and I had my colleagues actually in that meeting where quite excited that we're actually going to capture what's going to be available for the other professions as well. But having a number is not actually the sole issue. It's about actually how effective and efficient that we're using those as well, and then exploring what the opportunities are to develop that into a much professional arena. So lots of good things actually going in there. And then actually I described to you NMC standards, which went across Wales and the UK. So the NMC brought new standards in for post-registration education, which actually all our current providers have got to aspire to and actually achieve by this September. So regardless of actually our future programmes, they have to be in place for this September. So all our programmes are currently going, who are delivering those kind of programmes are going through that gateway process as we speak. And there's a number of meetings still outstanding and actually going to happen there as well. And in terms of finance, actually, Jill, I had to pick that up actually, and that's a good point. I didn't say there were no financial implications. I think we're the ones that said we do recognise that. But actually, the dashboard and the task and finish group that we put in place last year is down to evidence and actually to really demonstrate actually what's happening. So we've got that visibility and actually understanding of what potential, financial implications could be. So we've worked a lot on that last year in order to understand that what we is, and that will continue in the education and training oversight group that we are putting in place to be on each and every. So just key issues. I know they were quite a few, but there's quite a few of feedback. I'm so happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. And yes, recognition, it was a very comprehensive paper with a lot of issues. So now we get out to questions, and on my right.
There's going to be a point where I won't have a question. I found the paper really, really helpful, actually. It's very real progress and really informative, and it's quite startling, actually, when you look at some of the difference in attrition rates. So I found it really, really helpful. The one question I have is radiography, a huge attrition rate. What is there a problem?
So, although it looks as if it's a huge attrition rate, and I think the numbers are quite small, but in that respect, so all the four absolute peaks. I've got the
the small number.
Yes, small numbers. So in terms of diagnostic radiography, yes, actually that attrition rate has quite high. Yeah.
So with diagnostic radiography, there are issues there, and we've escalated it with the university, and they're doing a quality improvement plan around it. I think there's been issues with some of the lectures and the quality placements, so we're reviewing that relatively recent.
How soon do we get wind of that? Because 86 is quite a significant number, isn't it? So how early do we get note of that so we can take?
So that's an area that we're trying to improve actually and getting more regular informative data about that, because it's obviously so done. Yeah.
So 86 are the number of total age. It's just 30 radiographers. It's just 30 radiographers. We collected information on a monthly basis. But what we find sometimes is that students see it out to the end of the academic year, and then they may have academic failures as well. So sometimes we get in a block of failures at a specific time rather than dotted throughout the year. So I think that's why it's come to light now rather than that. But yeah, we collect information on monthly basis.
And that's why we're actually going to do, it is that conversation with the HNI to say it's the why, but also then actually what are they putting in place that is supported to the students so they don't actually fail that as well. Actually, that's just as important.
Yeah. Just a couple from me then. It's great to see the dashboard of the information and going through the difference of attrition and then interruption of studies. And I suppose it's just, have we got a feel for how many of the students do come back into training their interrupted studies? Sorry, it's a difficult question.
No, it is a complex situation.
Got the information through the dashboard now. We've got all that information. But you asked a really good question, so I think it's an important quality measure.
Yeah.
And it's a question about how students are supported whilst they're on interruption studies to come back into education. So we want to start reporting on that, if you like, separately.
Yes.
Because in one university, for example, 85% of students that go on interpretation studies may come back and join the same cohort or a later cohort. In others, that may be 30 or 40. And knowing that information allows us then to challenge those universities around their processes, best practice, what they're doing to support students on interpretation studies, what they're doing to integrate them back into programs. So that's a piece of work that we're currently working on. We're not there yet in those terms of those percentages, but we want to get there.
Yeah, no, that's exactly where I was going to go with my sort of follow up. If you haven't said that, was to know what the universities were doing. Because it was
the previous time that we were in university, the tuition has actually captured everything. So this is actually why the reference line to the definition. That's why we tease them out separately. Because actually, as you say, as Martin's described, that interpretation studies is very valid for a number of very good reasons. But it's actually how do we then actually track to that individual as to whether they come back in on that programme. So that's in a way, it's to split the tuition issue into two arenas.
Yeah.
One is interruption studies, the other one is short tuition and the why there, and actually how we support it needs to come back as well. And some of these actually could be, they may be fair studied, but what do we do then to equip them to come back in and achieve as well? So it's a focused piece of work actually, and the dashboard is helping us to do that.
And my second one was around the risk that you've identified with the mental health nursing places, and obviously we are looking to secure additional places through other institutions. When will we know whether that's been? Sorry, that might be just my lack of knowledge. But when will we know whether that's been successful?
It's a good point. Actually, those programs are starting now, and actually the last one is beginning a big process.
Yeah. So there's a number of things here really. One is we won't know our final numbers until mid-April because universities are still trying to recruit up until the last minute. And also we've got over 300 students doing the generic healthcare support worker level 4 programme. Historically, at least 2/3 of those have gone on to do straight into year 2 of nursing. So we've got 200 students in a generic year 1, which will be going to year 2. So we're going to do some work to really target those in mental health cohorts. We won't know that until September. The work's going on up until September around that. And with our initiative we've done with the Open University around the K102, again, we are doing some evaluation of the student experience and how many of those will go on to mental health courses as well. So it's an ongoing process, but over the next 6 months, I think that this will really start to take shape really. We're also doing a lot of work with the universities. For example, some of the adult courses are overprescribed and child nursing are overprescribed. And it's really what can we do to promote mental health nursing as an alternative field for those that don't make it on, if you like, onto the child fields or to refocus onto the mental health field.
In answer to your question for this particular cohort, it is maybe probably that we will know. But yeah, we watch those figures on a daily basis.
Thank you. Look if there's any further questions. So we're asked to note the report for sure it's about the quality of education. And again, thank you for all the work that went in it. It was very comprehensive report. So if we move on to item 2.2, I'll sort of formally welcome Alex to the meeting. And you're going to take us through this quality in education training project.
Thank you very much. Thanks for letting me have some time on the agenda this morning. So this is a piece of work that we've been undertaking in response to the Duty of Equality, which was introduced last April. And it's going to be a key action within the quality plan for next year, which is slightly out of order because that plan is coming to the board at the end of March. But I think you've had sight of that as a result of my appeal to board development. So this is one of the key actions within that. And really, I think, recognises the importance of our education functions in terms of the consequence of not providing good quality education and training in the first instance, but B, the impact of our education functions on quality and safety in the NHS more broadly. So out of all of the things that we do in HLW, this is probably the priority to make sure that we've got the right quality management processes in place. And And I think that what the duty of quality has done is say, well, regardless of whatever else we could do in quality management, we now need to have another look at them to make sure that we are clear it is mapping across to the standards that the duty of quality is introduced, as well as any standards that the regulators are asking for. So for me, it's not either or. So, you know, with GMC, yes, we have the GMC 3%, but now we've got the duty of quality, we've got to make sure we're also supplying the duty of quality. So I suppose that was my starting point for this piece of work. I'm recognising, and it's interesting when you see the section on regulators and the difference in approaches. No wonder is it that we've actually got apple, pears and bananas at the moment in terms of how we do that within HRW, because regulators have driven this in different ways. And there has been no other force really bringing together how we're doing it. So for me, the duty of quality is a real opportunity to do that. And the aim of the project is really to make sure that we do have clear arrangements for quality management and quality improvement of education and training. That as Chief Executive and Accountable Officer, that provides me with assurance that, you know, we know what quality is, we know when it's good, we know it's not so good. We have the opportunity to make sure there are actions in place when it's not so good, and then we have the opportunity to demonstrate that we've improved in response to that. So for me, primarily, this is, you know, I'm on a journey to make sure I'm assured on this, and then when I'm assured on this, then obviously as a collective, we provide this community with even more assurance than, you know, clearly we are already doing, and then obviously on behalf of the board. So that's why I suppose I've been leading this piece of work, because I'm just keen to make sure we have got that underpinning in place. At the moment, we're very much focusing on the programme that we particularly look at in this committee. So clearly, you know, we've got CPD, we've got apprenticeships, we've got other pieces of education and training. So we will make sure that they are included as well. But to start with, it was really our commissioned programmes that we deliver, undergraduate and postgraduate, that we're working on. So the section on the regulators is there to be read. But for me, the section 5 is really the bit that you know, I would appreciate a discussion about, also feedback on, because what we're trying to do really to make sure that we've got an agreed set of quality standards that are mapped to the duty of quality, and that we use as an organisation to what good looks like. As far as possible, driving consistency there, recognising the important influence of the regulators. And again, your Margaret's given a really good example today of how that's already changing in relation to dark soon. And then making sure we've got that quality management framework in place where we're building those in at the planning stage, but we've got good data and measurement about that, which isn't, I think sometimes we focus a lot on process as opposed to what are we actually measuring to tell us what good looks like. And then, you know, making sure that we're taking actions and the escalation processes are clear. So again, we've had a good example of that with the dental issue around, you know, now introducing a targeted visit approach in line with what medical already do, but driving that consistency. So hopefully section 5 sets out what we're trying to really achieve through the project, and then the project deliverables really reinforce that. And in particular, point 5, you can see, again, Margaret's touched on it today, you know, making sure that we've got the right infrastructure in place to manage our quality responsibilities, you know, right across the organisation, whether that's within the medical degree or whether that's in relation to our professional education area. But all the while thinking about, well, any money we take to invest in quality is coming off the money we're spending on commissioning, because there is no other place to get that funding. You know, the regulators don't give us lots of money to do the extra things that we've got to do. So we've got to be really cognizant of that, and really make sure that we're demonstrating that that money is being used wisely to achieve that. So Tom has agreed to lead this short-term project, and supported by Rosalie, who's Lisa's business manager, and is in the process of getting this group up and running, so that by the end of Q1 we've kind of achieved that sort of basic landscaping of what we think we need to do. And for me, what I would expect to happen then is that, you know, we're very, very clear then in our report to the committee about those 4 key questions that I'm sure Jill asked, I know John has asked in the past, and certainly Tina and Ruth, which is How do we get assurance on what's good? How do we get assurance that we know what's not good? How do we get assurance that, you know, you executive team and senior leadership group are taking the right actions? And how do we demonstrate improvement over time, and not just look at the information in the moment, but can see that we're actually getting better, and that will really be the acid test of success as we go through 24-25, that we get better and better at doing that. And I think, you know, for the teams that are producing this report, these reports, which, you know, you've gone through today, I hope that will make that process easier. Because ideally, this is the information that everybody needs to be looking at the level of the dean and the directorate. And that, you know, we look at it for assurance as an executive team and similarly for the committee. So hopefully by doing that, it will produce a more streamlined process for everybody, and clearly integrating that with our performance management framework, because this isn't a standalone bit, it's part of the overall. So just thought it would be useful to update the committee on those intentions today and get any feedback really on any other things that you might want us to pick up as we take that project.
Thank you, Alex, for that, and for a very clear paper outlining hoping to achieve through this project. Yeah, questions or comments? Jill.
I've got to comment on this paper because I have to confess, getting super excited about this because it kind of articulates, I think, the journey that my head's been in since I came onto this committee, and I just feel it's all kind of crystallising now together. And I know that's because of the apples, pears, and bananas, but I feel as though this will give us a framework. So I did get very excited by the paper, and I thought it was really, really clear and will give us a helpful framework. I suppose the question I had is the one that I probably had from day one, is how to persuade, cajole, shift, whatever words you want to use, the regulators into a couple of spaces: the quality space, the multi-professional education space, all the rest of it. And is there more that we need to do? Is the stakeholder reference group the vehicle for that, or is there a different vehicle? So that was my only, you know, question up against them.
No, absolutely. And I think in a way, when we've got a vacuum, the future quality helps us fill that vacuum. So that's kind of that, and that gives us that consistency, I think, which is useful. So, you know, some, as you can see, you know, some regulators are very silent on this, and others are getting much more into the space. So I think that helps us. We've had a sort of a separate conversation in the exec team and with our deputies and deans group around what other actions we need to take strategically to be in that supporting and influencing regulation space. So, you know, certainly inviting them to be part of the stakeholder reference group is one thing, but I think also just picking up on the individual strategic conversations we were having pre-COVID, where, you know, myself and any other member of the exec team would have a meeting with, whether it was, you know, the head of the NMC, or, you know, GMC is slightly different because we have loads of meetings with them anyway, or the HCPC or the PSA, just to sort of have that more strategic conversation, to be really clear about what we're doing on quality and how that, you know, fits with any of their intentions and aspirations, you know, whether they've got them or they haven't, but to really sort of be proactive in that space, I think, is kind of what we want to be doing. And, you know, I think not just on quality, but on many other things as well. So there's a conference next week on regulation, and HOW been asked to speak on, you know, where compassionate leadership fits with compassionate regulation, which again is an interesting theme. There should be binding their approaches, and, you know, duty, quality and compassion and leadership fit very well together. So yeah, but I think, you know, when you look at this sort of list of an array of approaches, I suppose that in a way the duty quality saves us now, because we've got a way into saying what we think the quality would be if they're not going to be explicit about it.
No, thank you. Oh, sorry, Lisa.
And just to add to that as well, as you bear in mind, in the conference you this referred to last year, that this year, last year, to that conference did look at that multi-professional education approach, and it is something that we are communicating actually with our regulators on a very often, actually in terms of actually how they are doing that. But I think honestly, I've been waiting years to do that. So therefore, we've got to start to developing that actually from that actually ground up as well. So we've got to do it as an iterative process to demonstrate that it can work. And nobody has actually got anything against it. But just obviously the regulators have not got to that position yet. They still talk.
All the regulators are in different places.
Yeah.
Ever since we've been contributing to professional standards authority meeting, either Steve Griffiths or me or somebody else saying, where's the common code of practice?
Yeah.
Where's the level playing field for all professionals? Why is it so different? And I've said it before that for the same incident, one professional will be allowed to continue practicing and another one will be struck off the register. There's all sorts of things like this that need to be sorted out by the regulators. They are bound by their own legislation, which takes years to change. The GDC hasn't had any big changes since 1984. I think there's and there is a legislation just going through government to free the regulators to make the changes independently without having to go back to legislation. So that is good.
And they are talking with each other. Julie, it isn't basically they are having these type of conversations. It's basically enacting it takes some time. I think so in terms of our approach to that multi-professional arena, they are actually, they agree with it. So it's not as if they're against it. It's just actually the mechanisms to do it. So we'll come.
Thank you. I obviously haven't been in the arena quite as long as Jill here, but I was also excited by this paper and see, where it would be taking us and us in the right direction. Just in terms of timelines, we've got the work being undertaken in this first quarter and it's coming back here to the next meeting. Is there anything in the interim that we could help support with as independent members or?
I think maybe out of committee, maybe just testing some of the thinking as it's going along. Certainly about the sort of Tom to just be able to have access to.
Yeah, I just thought to might be helpful just as a touch point before it comes.
Just say something which is probably also for a discussion maybe outside of the committee, but these are great, and the duty of quality gives us so many levers within the way we there are all the standards and the enablers for us as an organization to use in the first instance within our training programs, which is great. Then the little question comes later on how we support the people that we are training within the IDPs so that they can be safe, timely, effective, efficient. So some of the things that we deliver to help them to deliver on their duty, and then, Alex, I think we are some of the enablers in the duty of quality for other places. For example, when it comes to leadership, research and innovation, quality improvement, whatever. So there's different levels in which we have influence outside of GIW as well, which we will have to consider in the future.
I think a lot of those things are included in the quality plan, the broader quality plan that will go to the board in March. So you're absolutely right that making sure we continue to focus on leadership, making sure that we're supporting organisations with what they think are their quality priorities, and being really, really clear about that. At the moment, we don't have a mechanism, for example, for looking through all of the quality statements that come out of Welsh Government. There's a women's health, there's a frailty, there's a cardiac, there's a stroke, there's a At the moment, we don't systematically look through all of those and go, well, actually, what does that mean for the curriculum? What does it mean for how we're training our staff? What does it mean for CPD? And that will be something which the new quality role through the quality plan will be doing, which will link again back into some of those issues that Anton has referred to as well. So I think, this is a piece of work, but it does need to be seen in the context of the whole of the duty quality.
Thank you. So we were asked to note the project, which I think we've done, and hopefully we've provided some comments and observations for you to take that forward. Thank you. Thank you very much. We are basically ahead of schedule, which is great. So we're in part 3, the strategic matters, and 3.1, the planning approach for the education and training plan. Lisa?
I see I'm pushing you on this one. So this is that each year you bring to your attention that the approach that we are going to be taking in terms of the development of the next education and training plan. As you can imagine, we've only just resolved the G1, and we're now talking about the 2025-26. So I think it's fair to say that we've learned a lot from the process over the last few years. And obviously there was a lot that we learned last year, and then we encountered the need to review it again. So that process in itself has helped us actually as an executive and an organisation to learn how we could do it a bit differently. But we looked at the approach that we're going to take this year, and this gave the details of how we've captured the learning, improved our systems in order to we can address it in an effective and efficient way in line with duty of quality going forward. Stuart, do you want to add anything?
No, I think that's a good summary of the paper. I think what we felt we ought to do is do two parts to it, where what we think we should be doing, but also a plan that's within the constraints that we've got. So they've got the right information from us as a workforce organisation.
I think a big lesson that you from the previous one is about the engagement and the communication. The engagement that you to develop a plan is limited by the July. It's very well received by our stakeholders, but obviously the ensuing improvements and what happened after that, those stakeholders have fed back to us, how they felt in terms of how to then take it forward. So we're very cognizant of that, and therefore make sure that we've learned about that and how we can do it differently going forward, because it was very successful at July. We feel very pleased to be involved in it, engaged, informing and influencing it. We need to be mindful that was a good story. We need to continue that going forward.
Thank you. Questions?
Only one point, thank you, Chair, was with everything that's in the paper, and I guess avoiding the position we found ourselves in. It says in the paper to engage Welsh Government early. I mean, I would argue that we did that this year. Is there anything else? I know you've got a meeting for a debrief with the Welsh Government, but I guess sort of maybe more formal or in writing.
I think what we're thinking of is that we developed the plan last year, and effectively it was submitted to Welsh Government in July. I think the conversations and the engagement we had to have subsequently. What we are discussing is the thoughts of, as we are developing the plan this year, to have more of that informal discussion, so that there's no surprises, but I'm sure I feel like it's about to know.
Yes, so I think actually, they are engaged in the process ordinarily from a perspective. We did manage the process through an audit trail and regular meeting, particularly Glyn was meeting with them very regularly. And I was escalating and I needed to Judith. So all of that, if there is a clear audit trail around all of this, and now we've summarised that in a letter we've sent to Judith, which is now going to result in a meeting between her, myself and the chair. I think the main thing this year will be that the key issue, key learning from us was, obviously we're in a different financial environment. We have to do more than one scenario, and we have to do that other scenario at the same time as the first scenario is. That was when we're on this table have to spend lots of extra work, and caused lots of extra stress and caused additional time, and really caused us to upset some of our stakeholders who, didn't understand or choose not to understand the fact that we couldn't actually share all of that with them at the time. So I think for me, it's getting agreement to what's in those two scenarios, so that what we don't have is then Welsh Government picking holes in the flat cash scenario and saying we prefer this than that, and then we end up with a different scenario and stakeholders haven't been engaged in. So I think that's the key point. Is I think everything else was fine, but with the earlier development of the flat cash scenario, I would like them to be supportive in principle of that. Okay, the minister can always choose to do something different, although I don't think she does, to be fair. I think so. it's them causing that. And then, you know, actually when that goes in, we're not left with sort of, you know, over that space that the plan's agreed is not the one that the stakeholders are involved in, so it is that thing.
Thank you both for that. Yeah, I totally agree with the approach that's proposed and having attended the stakeholder reference group. In my report later, I was going to raise that very issue of how our stakeholders felt given what happened. But it's encouraging that what we're proposing now. I think it's sensible to propose two options or upfront so that we can share that hopefully with the stakeholders at the start. So in this for this paper, if there aren't any other further questions, we're asked to approve the approach to developing the ETP for 25-26, including the high level timeline. Thank you. Right, so item 3.2, the highlight report on phase 2 of the strategic review of health professional education. This is you, Lisa.
So once again, as far as this report, you receive this report quite often in terms of the activity and the work that we've actually taken. And as you can see, much of this work actually does get reported into the draw section as well. But this is a highlight of the areas that we've undertaken about specific questions.
Specific questions on Martin, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a couple of things from me because there's been a few very recent updates from this report in terms of some of the risks. The ultrasound paper is now progressed. We've met with shared services procurement to sign that off. And in relation to the independent validation of blood transfusions where we had no bids, one, we were quite disappointed with that because the thing has happened. Two, we've done an audit and we've checked all of our stakeholder engagement. We've gone back out to the market to understand why they didn't bid, and it was predominantly around the low numbers. Now we can't up the numbers because that's the need across Wales, but actually we've looked at more blended learning because with the low numbers they were finding it difficult to deliver actual training on site across different parts of Wales. We've incorporated that now. Disappointed that that wasn't raised at the time of the stakeholder engagement, but we've now incorporated that into a revised tender specification and we've gone back up to the market on the 8th of April and we're confident we can get bids. So I just want to give you those couple of updates since specific.
Thank you. Preempted my question on that one, so Joe. Okay. Any other questions?
Darling Martin, I forgot about that one.
Okay, so we're asked to note the report, which we've done, and thank you for that update. It's very, very helpful. Yeah, I was just thinking we are a little ahead of time, so if we wanted to just a 5-minute comfort break. Fiona, can you just stop the recording for a moment, 5 minutes, and we'll let you know when we're back on. Okay. So I think we're back live again, so we can restart. And we've made it to part 4 of the agenda, the governance matters, and we've got the draft committee annual report.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd, felly.
Sorry, I got them. Oh, I have. Everybody.
Okay, so diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd. Felly, papur i'w nodi ydy hon, da ni'n gofyn i'r Pwyllgor i ystyried adroddiad blynyddol ar gwaith Pwyllgor. Dyma cyfle cynnar i weld yr adroddiad mae'n amgylchynu 3/4 y flwyddyn. Felly, y bwriad ydy bydd adroddiad llawn terfynol o'r adroddiad yn dod i'r Pwyllgor mis Gorffennaf yn cynnwys gwaith y Pwyllgor dros y flwyddyn cyfan. Felly, da ni'n gwahoddi'r Pwyllgor ystyried yr adroddiad fel yma hi. Cynnal gofyn am sylwadau, ond papur i'w nodi ydy hon.
Apologies, my action thing didn't translate. So I got a few words of that, but I obviously can't read the paper down. So. Okay. Right. Can I open it up to questions and comments on the draft annual report? I see any hands going up. Just one, which was in the section when we were saying what we were doing at the start. We talk about sort of reviewing our reporting arrangements, and obviously that's in the chair's reflection. We have just talked about the project group that we're specifically having in the link. I just wondered if we need to make a little bit more of that.
Yes, great.
Yeah, that's just a small minor point, but otherwise, thank you.
Thank you, James.
Okay, on that basis, we were asked to note and make any comments. Done. Great. So we've got for information noting in part 5, we've got the degree apprenticeship consultation. Lisa.
So, I was asked to receive actually the report for information. There will be just rolls in. Thank you. And effectively, actually, what this actually provides you with is information on the extensive consultation that we undertook last autumn to last winter in terms of understanding actually the role of degree apprenticeships in Wales. So there was a requirement actually from the National Workforce Implementation Plan that we actually scoped out to the need for degree apprenticeships, particularly actually in nursing. But obviously this was the opportunity to go out to consult, but we also recognise the importance of providing information to the community who were receiving this consultation to understand what the questions are that were being asked. Because we knew as we actually went out to this, there's a very, very big difference between the policy constituents in Wales versus what's available in the UK, in England. And I think it was actually helping to clarify the people who would hopefully respond to this consultation in understanding what those differences are. It was quite an extensive consultation, apart from sending the document out to and receiving responses. And what I will say, although we had 20 detailed responses, I think that was actually interesting in representing a number of people as well. But as well as actually the direct responses, the team also undertook a lot of what they called student workshops. In other words, held workshops so people could come, ask questions, understand it, in order to be in a better position to respond to that consultation. But as you can see actually from this report, it is quite clear actually what the recommendations were coming from it. Just scrolling down without going on here. But effectively, there were keys and recommendations that came through this report of HEIW to do. The key messages were, in terms of degree apprenticeships, there were a number of professions indicating that they didn't want that degree apprenticeship in Wales for a variety of reasons. And we need to bear in mind that we've got a very good infrastructure and a framework in Wales, well, what we call the work-based learning, where people call it learn as you learn. And that is very well established in Wales, which is very different to what it is in England. But because the long-term plan in England that you indicated, yes, we're going to have a number of degree apprenticeships. Obviously, the appetite in Wales that was raised about, well, can we have this? But it's not just as easy as saying, yes, we can have it. So we've consulted, but also recognised that if that was to happen, there would need to be a Welsh Government policy change to enable that to happen as well. But as you feedback that you've done, a number of the professions is that they don't want the degree apprenticeships, but they do welcome the workplace learning frameworks that we currently have in place. An example that you gave there was from the Royal College of Midwives. They basically said they didn't want to do degree apprenticeship. They wanted more of what the nurses currently have. So in other words, we haven't got this degree nursing apprenticeship. However, we've got a lot of frameworks in place which enables people to come into work in the NHS, to actually then learn and actually become registered through a programme of pathways. And that's happening in a number of professions as well. So healthcare scientists, we've actually looked at that, our health professionals as well. And it is well received that these people are in service, delivering actually our care, and also learning and hopefully actually expanding their careers as well, which is part of workforce as well. And obviously something actually that we're quite keen to expand and actually develop. But happy to take the questions, but actually really this is coming for information in terms of what the outcome of that consultation was. But there's lessons that we've taken on board as well from HIW on what we can do to enhance people's understanding of those frameworks that are in place currently as well.
Thank you, and I recognise it was under the section for information and notice. So as we've got a little bit of time and are there any comments or points that people would like to make? Jim?
Just one comment, because I've been confused for years about apprenticeships in Wales. Found myself in the wrong place on a number of occasions. The other thing that I took from this was I'm also confused about the number of bodies involved in apprenticeships and training. So I learned about a new body in this one, the Commission for Tertiary Education and Research, that I haven't to come across. Oh, that's fine. That's okay then. That's reassuring. But the role of FQ and all sorts of other bodies, and I guess if we're going to get involved in this, which we clearly are, I kind of want that map. And I think you might have given us something previously in the session. Yeah. Yes. And I think I'm still a little bit confused, and I'm sure lots of other people are, which is why they keep coming back to us and saying, "What are you doing about degree apprenticeships?" So
the rules have changed, so therefore Welsh Government actually, well, and we're in discussion with all of these bodies in order that we can go along that journey actually with them and influence them. So Welsh Government actually hold the responsibility for apprenticeships in Wales currently, and obviously FQ actually do work with them to understand actually what's going on. But yes, the Commission for Tertiary Education will be set up. It's in the process of being set up. And it's not confirmed yet, but the majority of the who are currently in Welsh Government will transfer across to them. So they will become a key player in terms of actually apprenticeships currently going on. And of course, apprenticeships do happen in Wales currently, but actually in different arenas. So there's a lot that the Welsh Government have actually invested in and wanted to prioritise, because they've got a strategy in terms of actually young people and actually in engineering, specific actually apprenticeships that they've actually agreed that they will take forward. So this is the opportunity our CETA comes in to influence where appropriate as to what health and care sort of can actually do access in terms of the proper apprenticeships. We have a team actually within our directorate board who obviously does get involved and has that interface with them, because we actually make sure that we actually help our households to access the appropriate apprenticeships for some of their staff. We do that quality assurance process with them. We don't quality assure them. We enable them to ask actually for good quality education to deliver through that apprenticeship levy that they get as well. It is quite complex, but yeah, go on.
it links with, I suppose, one of the questions that came out of the board development session, wasn't it, which is like, I think John was just saying, what is our actual role in apprenticeships, because it's quite significant. You probably do need to do that mapping to make sure that we are all clear on our role, and also to make sure we stick to our role, because it is that kind of environment where with so many changes going on, it could easily morph into something that it's not intended to be. So yeah, we can do that, I think, can't we? And make sure that the new body is part of that, really. That's what Julie is today, actually interviewing CETA for their chief operating officer. So they were supposed to be set up for the first of April, but there was some delays in the legislation. So I think it's August or September it's coming online.
And if I share with you, when we took the report back to the strategic workforce and the implementation board, one of the questions from stakeholders was, well, how are you going to determine which degree apprenticeships you're going to pursue? I think to be very clear, we haven't got any responsibility, we've got no right for this moment to do that at all, because that is where government. So being clear, as you said, to what is our role, and at the moment, that's not in our gift to make that decision. We really have to. So, it's a long way. That would require changing legislation to do that.
And yeah, thank you for that and the update. And I'm glad I wasn't the only one slightly involved with all the acronyms and new bodies. How will we be kept appraised of work as it goes on?
So the team is obviously part of our directorate team, and therefore, they are the workers learning team that we can actually update on it, of course. But in terms of that degree apprenticeship, to the report that being submitted to Welsh Government, because that was their request to ask it to call that report. It's now in their gift to pursue that. So I think with everything we need to currently do, we have got them in mind to sort of develop any degree apprenticeship as we
wait for anything that might come from there. Okay, thank you very much. So we've noted that report and the findings and recommendations. Thank you. So I've got a short report on the stakeholder reference group, which I attended for the first time in February. It was a well-attended meeting chaired by Chris Jones. There were three key items on the agenda. We had an update, Alex, and in that update, she obviously highlighted the education and training plan for 2024, and we've had a discussion earlier around the sort of comments that were fed back from our stakeholders, after we had explained about the revisions and rework that has to be done. And I think it's encouraging to hear how we're looking at addressing that plan for 25-26. We also had an update on the strategic workforce plan, so we noted the progress on that. So that was the first part of the meeting. We also, the second part, we had an update on the IMTP, which Sophie Fuller gave, the Assistant Director of Planning and Performance. And again, that was mainly around giving an update on the timeline and the engagement which is currently being conducted. It was also helpful with the discussion that ensued about that, about how we were covering the quality and safety priorities for the health care board organisations, and how that would be addressed as part of our strategy. And then the final part of the meeting was a presentation on genomics, which Dorothy Edwards and Nicola Tappan again, which was an excellent presentation, gave a really good introduction into genomics and where it's going to take us and why it's so important for everybody within the health service. And that led on to a discussion around what support HEIW would need to provide, and what educational offer, etc., was going to be. It was an excellent presentation, and although we've had presentations at various board developments and other sessions, it's certainly worth hearing more than once. I think the final thing, as part of the stakeholder reference group, there was an agreement to share the dental workforce draft strategy with the stakeholders. And we've got a further meeting of that reference group in May, which I will intend to report back to the next meeting. If anyone's got any questions on that, I probably can't answer them.
Perhaps one comment, I suppose. So just obviously, the Royal College of Nursing expressed their concerns around the process, and so we met with them, with Martin, Lisa, myself, and Helen Wiley and some 13 last Thursday. Went through the detail of what's in the education training plan, and had a good discussion about some of the challenges, some of the issues, and certainly useful again to inform the process for this year. So hopefully that helped us get to a better place in terms of an understanding of what's sitting behind the numbers. Thank you. That's helpful. Thank you.
Which brings us to any of the business that I haven't had any identified to me. Has anyone any other business? No? So the date and time of the next meeting is Thursday, the 11th of July. So I shall bring this meeting to a close, and in accordance with the provision of section 1.2 of the Public Bodies Admission to Meetings Act 1960, it should be resolved that representatives of the press and other members of the public be excluded from the latter part of the meeting on the grounds that it would be prejudicial to public interest due to the confidential nature of the business transacted. The sessions to meeting will be held in a private session. So thank you very much, everyone. So thank you, and we stop recording.